that song. Which
song?
Proud. Was it?
Oh, I don't know. You're right. Well, that was one of the songs she sang, but she did a whole.
She did some others.
She did a whole oeuvre. She did about half an hour.
That's 2 words.
She did write it.
And what was the other word you used?
I don't know.
Instead of Ferrari, it was a word.
Imbroglio.
Oh, imbroglio. That's 2 I need to look up.
She did co-write it as well, so they made a fortune off the back of that song. Because it's one of those songs that, like We Are the Champions, that gets played all the time now at major sporting events. So, well done to her for that. So it was a great night. Obviously, in the end, the right team won for Britain.
I think the right team won for the sport.
Well, I think they were the best. They were probably the. Well, there wasn't much between the 2 teams, really, were they? I was going to say they were probably the best team on the night.
They were the best team defensively on the night. And the thing about Penrith that was quite frightening was that when they got it right, they didn't have to click into gear quickly.
Yeah, they played quick through the middle when they played well.
And they had a young kid, Jack Cole, at standoff that was only playing his second game. So clearly, again, he played as well as you would have expected him to play. But he wasn't Jerome Luai, and it's all instinctive. Stephen Crichton clearly has moved on now. You get the feeling, and nobody will ever know, if he'd have got the opportunity that May got when he broke clear. Crichton has a history of scoring those kind of tries. So, yeah, they're going through a little period of adjustment as well. But the dignity they showed, the way Wigan hosted it, which was exceptional. I mean, the fan zone beforehand, absolutely packed out. The pre-match entertainment, brilliant. The atmosphere around the ground. Sometimes when you get a big crowd in, even for a big game, like 5 minutes of absolute furore in and it goes flat a little bit. None of that. The atmosphere was great throughout. And people who were clearly neutral were there as well. It wasn't 24,000 Wigan fans and 100 from Penrith that came on a corporate trip. There were lots of people there that were there for rugby league rather than because they were Wigan fans.
If you've just joined us on YouTube, you've not missed anything, but we've spoken all about Wigan and Penrith, and now we're not going to speak about it anymore. No, we haven't, because we haven't spoken about the big moment of the game, the most controversial moment of all time in the history of the world. Jake Wardle, he got the ball down. I think he got the ball down. I think the tip of the ball touched the line, and it must have done because Liam Moore saw it, because that's why he sent it up as a try. This is the problem with the video referee system, James, and we've been having this discussion on this programme. I think, when did it come in?
It's been in quite a while now. I'm not sure.
Probably for the whole 10 years of this programme. It's a rubbish system, James. The system is at fault.
Well, I don't know. There is no perfect system.
Well, there's that.
There were 3 tries in the game that all came back to the live call. There was one in the first half that no one's talking about, which was the Penrith try, which, to all intents and purposes, he must have grounded the ball, but you can't. There is no angle. Having looked at all the angles as we saw, there's no angle that shows it, and therefore the video referee has to go back to the live call. The same happens with the Wigan try, the Wardle try. I actually, for what it's worth, I think he does ground the ball on the line, but...
Well, you would say that, James, because you're defending your mate. I'm just
and you're English.
True.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I'll just give you my opinion as to what I think. I think, in the same way that other people think he doesn't score, I think he does score. And the reality is, neither side of that argument can ever win, because nobody can see on an angle that the ball is or is not. And that ultimately what you come back to the live call. I think where it falls down a little bit is that the last decision is that goes up as a live decision, no try. And again, the video referee tries to find an angle, cannot find an angle, and therefore has to come back. There's insufficient evidence to overturn the live decision, and he has to come back to that live decision. So one can only imagine that Liam Moore had the best view, and in his opinion, he hadn't scored. And that's ultimately why the live call exists. Having said that, if we didn't have the live call system, I think each of those 3 tries would be awarded as tries, because the laws talk about benefit of doubt to the attack, and that's the old system we had. So where there is no live call to take into account, the video referee would revert back to that. But there were plenty of controversial moments with that decision. People would say, well, he didn't score, or he did score, and you're just using that as a bit of a cop-out. So you'll never win.
The live call is what you would get if we didn't have a video referee. So all the people saying, it's a disgrace, we shouldn't have a video referee and it shouldn't be referred to, like, okay, well, Liam Moore would have called that as a no try.
Yeah, in the same way that French's try would have been given as a try without the video referee. Because
what a try that was.
Or wasn't, because it's not in the paper, so it didn't happen.
So is that now the best non-trying of the week? Because I'm sure there was one last year that they said was the best non-trying.
But they've burnt a player there, haven't they? Burnt a player that, you know, that I wonder if that comes back and they reuse that one.
But how brave to pull a play like that when you're at that stage of a match that clearly is going to go to the last minute, to have the presence of mind to say, we're going to chip over from the scrum.
I mean, having said that scrum,
Wow.
that field position came from what I believed was an error by Liam.
Was that the ball strip?
He gave a knock on, and it wasn't a knock on in my opinion. So that's one as a referee, you breathe a sigh of relief.
Liam, we know you're watching, so there you go. You were wrong.
You know, but and the ball steal decision was wrong because the international law, as we'd said in commentary, the international law applied, and so the drop off.
And they did drop off.
They did drop off.
One-on-one.
So had that been on Thursday night, Friday night, or Sunday afternoon in this country, then that's illegal. But we only had that the NRL rule in for one season, and then we ditched it.
So as Phil points out here, why do we have 3 sets of rules? Well, it's because the Australians, isn't it? It's them. It's not it.
Yeah, we've changed ourselves, and it ultimately comes back to, you know, the IRL doesn't have the teeth that it in an ideal world should have, and the NRL has the money and has the wherewithal to just do as they please. And
The argument is that each competition is allowed to adopt local rules that suit the conditions of that competition. What it's meant is we've got 3 different sets of rules. Who's going to be brave enough to call the parties round the table and say, we're going with yours, or we're going a hybrid? I don't know. But
you'd have to get the NRL to commit to it.
Yeah.
Because the Super League would
well,
probably
the interesting
commit,
thing, and no doubt we may talk about high tackles, we may not.
I've got to talk about Wakefield Hunslet ARLFC to come.
And there was only one high tackle in the World Club Challenge.
Wow.
One high tackle penalised in the World Club Challenge.
And what a physical game it was, by the way.
And intense
you know,
throughout. And the ball in play. I mean, I don't know what the stat is of that, but I'd be very surprised if it's not 65% of the time the ball was in play. Or probably more, 70% maybe.
No one who stumbled across BBC Two on Saturday evening, because they wouldn't have stumbled across Sky Sports, they would have stumbled on BBC Two, maybe expecting some opera or something. Some opera. There's always
Antiques
some opera.
Roadshow.
Antiques Roadshow, opera, all the things you get on BBC Two, and there's some Northern Oiks and some Australian Oiks playing rugby there. They would not have failed to be impressed by the atmosphere,
The speed,
the speed,
the
the intensity,
athleticism.
the violence and everything.
It will be interesting, going back to the head high thing. What rules will Australia adopt? Because they, as the contact sport, will still be under the same auspices that we are, to make sure that it looks like we're doing something.
So when the World Cup comes around in 2026, in wherever the World Cup's going to be
The
played,
Southern
in
Hemisphere.
somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere, what rules will?
we don't know what our rules will be by then, because they've already
That's
been
awesome.
tweaked this week. So
Gav says it should be the NFL style. Gav, you're going to upset Rowan Smith because he doesn't like all this. Have a screen at pitch side and let the referee make the choice with more information than his live call. It's just gone forever.
well,
But I guess it goes on forever now with the video.
Look, I think there's an argument on that you know, for me, all decision making should ideally be made by the on-field official. But you know, if you are a referee trying to view a screen in that corner in that last minute, the screen is in the far diagonal corner from Wigan, so you're 120 plus metres away.
They have another monitor.
So you'd have to then
Pitch
go,
side, yes.
as they do in football,
Oh,
go
yes,
to a pitch side monitor.
monitor.
So you then got 25,000 people.
Make sure it's a big pitch side monitor, not a little one. You can't tell what's
I
going
don't
on.
know. In an
John
ideal
Lance
world,
telling.
yes,
But
they would have a role.
On
but
that last try, that monitor wouldn't have told you anything.
it wouldn't have told him anything different. So all it would do, it would still bring you back to his live decision, which his live decision was no tries. He would come back no try. In rugby union, I saw a try in the
Surely
France-Italy
not.
game.
What?
A try in rugby
What?
union, surely
Yeah.
not.
Well, I didn't think it was a try. I thought it was a knock on in the build-up. But anyway, so it went to the video referee, but the way in which they sent it up, I think, in his opinion, it was a try, and then they had to find a reason to overturn it, and I think they have to have conclusive evidence. But the referee has a role in that decision, so he stands and looks at the big screen, but in his opinion, he couldn't see a knock on. So
I think we went to just enough looks at the last incident for it not to kill the atmosphere dead in the stadium. any longer, any more angles,
Yeah.
that holding of breath by all the Wigan fans and the watching television fans would have dissipated, and there'd have been boos and why are we waiting?
Turning
and
over to casualty.
all the other.
thing, yeah.
So it was a wonderful occasion. Penrith were incredibly dignified, as we said earlier. They did not look at any of the incidents in Ivan Cleary's. His post-match was nearly 20 minutes. He was asked a couple of times. He could have ventured the fact that they thought they'd been hard done to. He just talked about what a wonderful occasion it was, how glad he was that they'd come over and been part of it. He even asked, like everybody's going to do in the, particularly after this weekend, would you have it in Vegas? He said, you know what, we've had such a fabulous time here and the atmosphere's been so good. This is where it should be. He just the other thing, which means very little but says a lot, is that when Penrith's players and staff came out of the dressing room, you know the configuration at Wigan, it's like then a U-turn to get to the bus, and the mix zone for the media is where that U-turn is. Every single one of the players and staff said thank you to the media. We hadn't even interviewed them, but they were so polite. Then you walk into the area where they're getting on the bus and some of the corporate people are waiting for things to be signed or to have pictures taken. Every single one of them stopped. Every one of them said, thank you very much. They were flying out early the next morning. They were so imbued with the occasion and so respectful of it that you left there thinking, this rugby league one day might catch on.
Yeah, well, that's what makes you, pleased to be involved in the sport, doesn't it?
It was fantastic.
Why do we ask Nathan Cleary if he wants to come and play in Super League, despite the fact we know the answer? And I know I did this with Jonathan Thurston, however many years ago it was. But we don't ask Ivan Cleary, do you want to come and coach in Super League? Do you want to take over at Huddersfield in a couple of weeks? Fancy it. Gav says...
Controversial.
Well, I just picked that out of thin air.
Threw that in there.
Just picked Huddersfield out of thin air. I could have said St Helens. I'll say St Helens. That's St Helens. But I spoke to Paul Wellens last week. He's my mate now. So. At what point do we start talking, says Gav, about European Rugby League and Australian Rugby League in the same way we talk about League and Union? Well, it's been that...
It's like we said earlier, which possibly wasn't on YouTube. One of the questions asked of Ivan Cleary was, is the gap narrowing between Super League and the NRL? Because for the last 2 years, a Super League team has won a World Club Challenge in the most thrilling and spectacular way. And the answer is no, we are no closer. But the teams at the top could hold their own against an NRL team in a one-off game. I don't know if they could do it every week at that intensity, because we're not tested at that intensity. The problem we've got is that until everybody spends the salary cap and we have more people playing the sport over here, so we get first choice of athletes, then the gap between the 3 or 4 at the top who can put on a display like that and the rest is huge. And it's no different to 1997 when we played in a World Club Championship and Australian teams won virtually every game. We had clubs like Wigan that went over to Canterbury and won, which was fantastic.
Sometimes Penrith won all their games and didn't qualify for the quarterfinals.
But nothing has changed until we get a raising of the standard here, which is partly around the ability to every club to spend the minimum salary cap. We can't match teams in the NRL that spend 3 or 4 times as much and have a choice of so many people that play the game.
Yeah, and the IMG plan, as I understand it, is to go to 14 teams in the Super League, isn't it? But that's a counter to that argument, isn't it? That actually, if you reduce the number of teams in Super League to get that intensity by having a smaller pool of Super League players of say 8 teams instead of 12 or 14, then surely you would get a higher level of intensity week in, week out.
And
how do you then generate fixtures as a different
you'd play
challenge?
less games, which would again increase the intensity. So
The
answer is no, we haven't closed the gap, but our top teams are very, very good.
Well, there must be a magic warehouse full of rugby league players that are going to be put into this Super League America competition, which the Australians are stupid enough to think can happen, despite the fact that Major League Rugby is obviously a massive...
Well, the other big story
failure
in the lead up to the World Club was the NRL are going to buy Super League.
Yeah, that as well, yeah. We're going to move back to winter. No, we're not.
And I did manage to ask the highest ranking official in the RFL. I congratulated him on selling the game to the NRL, and he said, it'd be nice if somebody talked to me about it. Had a lot of meetings with them recently, but I thought somebody might have mentioned it if
I buy Super League, do I just get a load of balls and post protectors? And where did Wigan get them posts from? I'm going to have to twist these things around. Look, You can't. I don't know if you can see them on YouTube.
Oh, that was
They were brilliant.
That was outstanding. There's definitely
The
an
flashing
IMG
posts.
point for having flashing posts.
We've seen those before, though. We've seen them. I think they've had them in their NRL. Oh, was it in
They
the
had them in the
sevens
nines
and
tournament,
Nines,
yeah.
nines, yeah.
We didn't have them at Wakefield yesterday. It was very disappointing. No flashy posts. The floodlights came on and they stayed on, so that was good. But no flashy posts. I think I've covered everything. Ian did say, not Ian Boldsworth, who's just joined us, but Ian Waterhouse. Did anything happen in the first 10 minutes of the podcast? You have to download it and find out.
We talked about the
Make
World
some
Club Challenge. It was just bang on as well, I thought.
Gary says the Wigan try wasn't a try, he was short of the line. Gary the Viking, well done to you. You're in the next round of the Challenge Cup. We miss.
That's good result for them at Bradford.
Did anything else happen at Wigan that we need to talk about, apart from Heather Small, Russell Watson, fireworks, flashing posts, Wigan winning?
Just it was a wonderful
Were
night.
pies
for
all
the
right?
sport.
Pies all right?
Chicken Balti pie.
Balti pie.
So, no.
Pies, mint balls, and the world champions Wigan now. Matt Pete. I call him Matt because I checked this because I thought Matty sounds a bit.
Chummy.
And also I looked on their website before I interviewed him, and they call him Matt, so I'm calling him Matt.
I think he was emotionally and physically drained, which sometimes happens that you expect the
So
winning,
we're
the
looking
winning
on Huddersfield
coach
this weekend now.
to come in and be absolutely euphoric, and because they put so much into it, and it's so emotionally draining, it's gone right to the last minute. The one thing he said that again I think deflects all arguments about disputed decisions is that he said that had that try been given in the last play, had Nathan Cleary kicked the goal, which he inevitably would because he's Nathan Cleary,
Quite good, yeah.
he would have been just as proud of his players whether they'd won it or lost it because of the way that they played and the DNA that they've got and the covering for each other, and that's what they're all about. So in a way everybody won on Saturday night, which is why to see so many people on social media, particularly from Britain,
Oh, Penrith were robbed.
say it like, you what?
Oh, no. Anyway, I mean, you can imagine the amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes for not just off field but on field and the coaching staff to prepare for that game. So
Absolutely.
I think that the challenge is now knowing what happened with St Helens last year. What's the effect of that win?
The interesting thing is I don't think it's the next game. So I think if you
Yeah,
look
it's
at
just
it
like the Easter thing.
historically, it's like you've still got a bit of adrenaline.
As he says, whilst looking to see who they play this week.
They play Huddersfield this
Huddersfield.
week.
It's
I know
the
that.
game
Hang
after.
on. Let me-
Yeah.
And interestingly, the game after
was-
is London away.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
There you go. Did we discuss this last
We
week?
did. We
Was
looked
yeah.
at that actually. To be fair, but I think the fact that they've not travelled to Australia
Absolutely.
is a big factor.
And they've got a big squad.
Yeah.
Although, Cruz Lehman being injured isn't great for them. But
They could have got Brent Dwyer on loan.
they could have done. But Lee got there first. Which I think we exclusively reveal on here a couple of weeks ago that Brad Dwyer would be moving to Salford.
I can't remember we had the conversation about Wigan's next fixtures last week, so that's me to remember.
I don't think we do exclusives. either.
Never done exclusives. We had Rob Hicks on months before everyone else though. Robert Hicks. Sorry. But Matt P, what does he do now? He's done everything.
He's won everything inside 2 years. hasn't he?
Tremendous, yeah. And some of the stories that come out around his management style is really interesting.
Yeah, I was told that he himself has a coach educator.
Yeah.
And he will go away for 2 or 3 days and turn his phone off completely just to be in that environment where he himself is recharging his batteries, getting some new ideas, talking with his mentor about some of the things that he thinks might be issues maybe within his realm of coaching. And he comes back completely refreshed with a different perspective or a slightly altered perspective. That's top level management. That's not sports management. That is, if that's a multinational corporation sending its high level executives to a camp together, that is top of the range stuff. So again, what he's doing and what we're going to doing to support him is whether you're a Wigan fan or not, it's fantastic.
And the players clearly respect him.
Oh, absolutely.
Said the other week, just speaking to
What
him
about Tyler Dupree? Stat that came out. Played 11 games for Wigan, won 3 trophies, never been on the losing side.
Retire. Done.
He can't get any better.
Please love him.
Negotiate a new contract now.
Get it sorted now. I said the other week, after speaking to him, I thought I'd run through brick walls for this man. Well, I spoke to him for 5 minutes about stuff.
And it's partly, again, because his background is not a traditional, I played at a very high level, I've gone into coaching. It was, I did an English degree. We talked about this before.
He did a proper degree.
It gives you, yeah. So things like poetry are an influence on him, and you just think, well, that cuts it from a slightly different cloth, and it's why he is able to have. I think that the word is perspective. I can't think of another word. He has a different view on life value. The other thing that came out, which you probably read in the run up to the game, was that incredibly sadly Liam Marshall's mother died the week before, and Matty Pete just said, we're all going to the funeral. We're all going to dress in our Wigan regalia. We're going to respectfully just attend. We're not going to make a big deal that we're here. We're not going to tell people that we're here. We're just going to be there for our mate, and we're all going to be there. And they went, and you just think when a club does that to that level of detail for a mate, then they're going to theoretically die for each other out on the pitch, aren't they? Which they did. Their defence was astonishing. And again, that's what Ivan Cleary focused on, Wigan's defence, not the deficiencies of any refereeing decision. And they had, at Penrith, as we said in the first bit, which you have to listen to again on the podcast, Penrith had 2 gilt-edged chances that they themselves didn't take. And they would have won the game if they had.
Their last tackle options remind me of Leeds at the start of last year.
Well, they didn't do short kick-offs.
And they had a captain. They've got a captain now. I can't get over Leeds having a captain. I tell you what, if you didn't watch the Huddersfield St Helens game before it, well done, because that was terrible.
I watched it. I watched it because I
How
could watch
dull was
it,
that?
and then had to leave having finished watching it, and I was like, "Oh, this is boring."
I just finished my
Was it
programme.
not good? Because obviously being at Wigan, we didn't get the chance.
Boring.
Just nothing.
Yeah.
Fraser Denton and John Wilkin pitched the commentary perfectly because they never got excited about anything because there wasn't anything to get excited for. So I could sit there on my sofa and just have a quick doze.
Although I did think, well, that's the challenge when it's now a 2 commentator system, that there's just 2 people to fill the.
The answer is one of them has to start singing.
Yeah.
No, just no, it's perfectly. Oh, it's awful. Awful.
But St Helens must have been impressive.
They were very
impressive to have nilled.
They were
an
professional.
opposition.
Yeah,
Professional.
that's the word I was going to use. They were just very professional, and they
Went
sort
through
of
the
ground the
process.
win out in many ways. And
Which
they,
at this time of the year
yeah,
is what teams.
they scored a good couple of tries actually, a nice couple of tries.
I think Wellsby's try was good from memory, but I can't remember much about it.
Yeah,
It just kind of, it was on the telly and it happened in front of me, but I can't really tell you much more about it. 6,812 people there though, so you know, they might have enjoyed it.
And 1,500 of those were from St Helens.
St Helens, yeah. The home of the world champion, not home of the world champions now. They have to take all those barriers and all those signs down because Michael Smith lost the darts as well, so it's just bad times for St Helens.
Even though they are top of Super League after 2
2
rounds.
weeks, yeah. Well done, St Helens. Oh, Gav, come on. Wilkin couldn't sound excited if he was sitting on an electric fence. He's always excited on the telly. He was trying to demonstrate tackles on Jamie Jones Buchanan the other day.
he was excited at half time of the Warrington game.
Phil says he can't wait for Gus Gould's podcast. He'll be fuming. He's blocked us on Twitter, so we won't be listening.
Well, was he here? He should have been here on his way to Las Vegas, shouldn't he?
Decent crowd turned up at London, 5,000 I believe, says Kevin. Yes, what's he saying in the paper? 5,102.
Highest
Including
crowd
Mark
since
Wilson was there.
2010. And clearly a lot of new people, and against a team that don't bring away fans, understandably. That's not a criticism of Catalan, who played brilliantly. That is something to build on. That's another positive that I'm told. I was switching between the 2 games, but when we had we had the incident, tend to stick more with a bit of Warrington and Hull. But was it 5 times Catalan were held out by the London defence, and the crowd really got behind that because they could see that level of, again, energy and intent and togetherness. I think fans would go back if they can see their team performing that way.
That's the thing,
Mike Eccles is a massive asset for them. Everything he says.
If you don't sell people, we're going to win every game and it's going to be great and it's going to be tough, we're going to battle. If you battle, then people will get behind you.
I mean, there's certainly, the next home game is going to be at home to Wigan, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
So they're going to
world
win now, as we said,
champions.
yeah.
And
Interesting game at Hull on Sunday as well because
Have Hull got any players?
Hull have had another 3 banned today.
Tony Smith playing?
Scrum half.
Who's on their coaching staff? Have they got
Jason
any-
Davidson.
Yeah,
play?
I'm not sure he's got a pedigree, but
At least when they had Gareth Ellis.
Simon
he
Briggs.
he can get the boots on, can't he? Not Scott, because he won't kick it out.
and he's at Leeds anyway.
Will London win a game this year, says Ian? And the answer is yes, because I think Wakefield will lose a game at some point this year. So if Wakefield will lose a game in the Championship, which I think they need to win, then London will win a game. Because they'll always win a game. Someone will always lose.
There'll be a week when they'll
happen.
play somebody who takes them a little bit too lightly and they'll turn them over. But I just think London are moving in the right direction. They've got clearly a spirit about them. They know that effectively their fate is sealed for this year. It's not stop. It's easy when you're going to get relegated to not make that tackle to stop Catalan scoring on the post when it's already 28-0. That's something that you can't buy. That's a very precious commodity. So they'll be fine. They may well even knock off 2 or 3 wins. There'll be somebody who's playing them the week before the Challenge Cup that's in the final that will send a slightly lesser side and they'll get turned over.
Mm.
Should we delay talking about Warrington Wigan until last? Or just talk about it now?
Warrington Hull, you mean?
Warrington Hull, sorry. It's always because Warrington play Wigan all the time.
Do it in whatever order you like.
Hull would have won. That's what everyone on the internet is saying. All the Hull fans are saying Hull would have won if the player hadn't been sent off, and despite the fact they lost by 26 points to Warrington. Now I remember Hull the week before against Hull Kingston Rovers, and they were rubbish. So they were slightly better this week. I think slightly is a bit unfair. They were better this week.
Yeah,
they looked much
again,
better.
had a
much
lot
more
of spirit about
competitive.
them. Yeah.
But
I think there was more in that performance for Hull fans to take out of than the week
Yeah.
before, for sure. I mean, I know they are obviously a massively disrupted, depleted team, but they showed spirit in their
Yeah,
performance,
absolutely.
And yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, look, it ended up with
It blew out late on that.
yeah, the incident with the red card, but that
The
as we talked
incident.
about last week, that doesn't directly. That's not the single determining factor in the result. It's an influence in potentially the outcome.
It
of the
could have
game.
been 6-6 at half time without that because they wouldn't have kicked the penalty, and then it would have been 13 men against 13. The likelihood is it would have been a closer result, but I think we'd seen enough to know that Warrington were going to win that game.
there's almost
So it
nothing.
didn't determine the outcome.
No, there's almost nothing to talk about with the incident. So now I'm going to refer to it forever as if it's some kind of major, terrible thing that happened. Just because everything's changed now. This is the advantage of doing the programme on a Monday rather than a Sunday. MRP's out, everyone's unhappy about something else. But as it turns out...
I only have one question, which again, my learned friend will be in the best position to answer.
I'm not sure if I am.
Well, certainly more than we are.
So it's Kaplan of the Bailey now. Is this where we're
I
at?
put it to you.
Yes.
The briefing we went to about how the games are going to be refereed this season, about the sanctioning plan, about the various categories you need to go to decide an incident, I thought that New Brown would have been yellow carded because we were quite clearly told by Robert Hicks that it's the responsibility of the tackler to not get their head in an area where it comes into contact with the ball carrier. Whether that's intentional or not, that was going to be how it was going to be sanctioned. So I thought, well, clearly, whether he meant to do it or not, Ben Curry's had his eyebrow split open. There's clearly been contact with the head. Video review shows that it's come from New Brown's head. Oh, we'll get a sin bin in because that's the framework we're playing under. The bit I didn't understand was when it comes back to Marcus Griffiths on field, that it's forceful and there is no mitigation. Because that puts the on-field referee in an absolutely impossible position. But why would whoever viewed that have thought that clearly there was no mitigation and it should be deemed forceful when all we could see was there was a slight turn of Ben Curry in the tackle. New Brown's sort of got his head up, yet he doesn't try to adjust. Why was that coming from the video referee? And that's a rhetorical question because you don't know,
Yeah,
because you
no,
weren't the video referee.
There's a couple of things in that. One in terms of where one would assume, and I don't know because I've not heard the audio, but one would assume that wording has come from the video referee because that appears to what have happened in round 1 and round 2 of the incidents we've seen so far. That the player is brought out by the referee and he sort of reels off a list which is whether something is direct or otherwise, whether it's forceful or otherwise, high level, low level of force, whether it's any mitigation or aggravating factors, and it's kind of what we discussed last week. And that must have come from the video referee, is my opinion. But the main question I have, and I don't have the answer, is what is the framework that is being worked to? We talked about it last week, and that was me making observations of those interactions between a referee and a player who's about to be dismissed or yellow carded, as to a possible framework that they're working to. But I still think with the press release that's been brought out today, and Robert's words on that it refers to a head contact framework. But what is the framework? Where is the framework? Can we see the framework? Now, if it's there and it's on the RFL's website, then great. But let's have a link to it, and maybe I should go and have a look on the website. I don't know. Maybe I've not found it. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, I think you need to have transparency, and so everybody is aware of what that framework is, as opposed to trying to work out what the framework is. That's not to say, by the way, that ultimately I felt it was the wrong decision on the night. I didn't think it was a sending off. And there always, in my view, there was always going to be a statement to be released following that game. Whether that was the day after, probably not, because of the World Cup Challenge. It's followed on the Monday. And I think, I won't use I was going to use the phrase common sense.
What is common sense?
Yeah, exactly.
For more details and examples, search the Rugby League website.
Oh, I'm trying to do that, but I've broken it. And also found the whistleblower form, so I'm going to dob in all my media people I don't like.
Well, then maybe I need to go away and do that. And if that's
But
the case, then
I
that's fine.
thought
But
it was a mistake from on high. There was nothing on field that indicated that should have been the outcome. And
the examples that I've seen on head contact, and by the way, head-on-head contact was always going to be the most controversial
Yes.
of any incident. And we haven't seen one in round one. We did, but it wasn't noticed on the field. There was a ban in round one. I think it was Tom Amoni, from Lee, was banned for a head-on-head contact. Now that example on that game was the kind of example that I've seen or understand has been shown to sort of referees and clubs and players, where it's an initial impact, where the defender is stood in an upright position against a ball carrier in an upright position, and their heads clash immediately.
And there's no adjustment.
No,
made.
and that's why it's led to a tweak in the interpretation on the head contact framework. Rightly so, that they're now saying if it is initial contact, that's what will be sanctioned. New Brown wasn't on initial contact. There was contact, but it didn't come initially. So he would argue, well, he tried to avoid contact, and he did. And it was only the circumstances of the tackle that ended up where his head met.
I think the other thing that Tony Smith said in the aftermath that I hadn't considered but needs to be a mitigating factor is the state of the pitches, with the greatest respect to groundsmen or women who are doing a fantastic job in horrendously wet conditions. But if you can't plant your feet, that's a mitigating circumstance that the tackler is occasionally going to get in the wrong position.
It is.
I don't think New Brown slipped into that particular tackle, but that's not written in the framework either. That a mitigating factor might be you can't change your position.
There's probably...
And maybe he said, "Oh yeah, I could see that. I was getting close to the guy's head, but I couldn't move because my feet were encased in mud."
But again, I would ask, is it in the framework? Because I don't know. I've not seen the framework. That's a point I'm trying to make. It might be in the framework.
I don't think
know.
conditions are.
No, but we talk about dropping of height and being a mitigation for a ball carrier. If a ball carrier drops in height, we talked about it last week with Dupree, didn't we? Ball carrier drops in height, then that's mitigation.
Yeah.
But what about mitigation the other way, where, as you rightly say, if a defender slips and dramatically slips into contact, then it's inevitable that there's going to probably be an outcome off the back of that.
There were a couple of incidents this week, and we must say last week 13 players got charged. This week I think it's 6. So again, I know, and we've had one last game, so that needs to be taken into account.
And the Huddersfield St Helens game, barely a penalty in that game for high tackles or anything.
There were a couple of things. One is London have had no cards, no disciplinary issues. London have conceded more points and done more defending than any team in Super League.
Some would say they probably missed more tackles than other teams, but I'm not trying to be harsh.
But it can be done.
But you're right. You make a fair point. They've defended probably more than others.
If you thought that there was going to be a team at the top of the sanctions list, you would think it would probably be the team that's making the most tackles, conceding the most points, doing the most defence, would be tiring more than other teams because they're not used to playing at that level and intensity, and they've been so far squeaky clean. I think the only issue I would have is we're seeing some head contact that isn't being picked up. So in that Hull Warrington game, Liam Sutcliffe is quite rightly denied a try because the defender gets under him. But he's been hit round the head as he tries to ground the ball. So to me, I was expecting no try, penalty to Hull. But we didn't get that head contact. Now, again, you are gonna miss some, but that's one that the video referees looked at.
Well,
Again, why did we not go back and say, clearly, you're right, he's held up, but check the head contact?
I mean, bluntly, the two incidents on that game in relation to tries were a mess, actually. That should have ended up in a penalty, but it comes back to the video referee protocols in that the video referee can only intervene on incidents that merit either a red or a yellow card. Now,
Right.
Ideally what should have happened on the field was, when it's referred, the referee will say, look, I'm checking for a try and my live decision is no try. If it is no try, I'm going to come back for a penalty for a high tackle.
Which actually could have been yellow carded.
Yeah, and I think having said all that, even though it wasn't referred on field, I think again there has to be a process in place whereby that is identified somehow, and we end up with the right outcome. The right outcome should have been a penalty, in my opinion, for contact with the head. Now whether that's taken further, that's a different question. But for me, it should have been at least a penalty.
And I think the other thing about players need to take an element of responsibility in all this, which is something that you've said, is when Matty Ashton makes the break that led to the penalty try, Tex Hoy has all of him to aim at, and he aims at the head. You know, that's what players need to. I'm not saying just having a go at Tex Hoy. I'm just saying that when players are in that position, their initial instinct has to be to go lower. And again, because it was a penalty try, was probably the double jeopardy reason why Hoy didn't get sent in. But he should have been.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, as a tackle technique, I've never tackled anybody, so it's not for me to teach it.
The combined tackle count of the three of us is 0.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said that going up high necessarily in that position will always reap the rewards. Yeah, you'll want to probably get ball and all and tackle, wouldn't you, and throw him into touch. But he doesn't necessarily need to go that high. Clearly, the first impact wasn't high, was it? It was shoulder and up. So,
But I think you've got to aim lower in the current era.
Yeah, but I don't disagree. But the tackle height ruling has not come in and won't come in until next year. So, but it probably wasn't identified on field, was it? Because a penalty was being given for a late challenge. We then end up with a video referral rather inexplicably, which I can only assume was because the referee viewed it on the screen, and we ended up with a referral. It was all a little bit of a mess, to be honest.
We'll see what happens after the big meeting between the players and... Who is the captain of Salford?
But is it the 12 captains that are meeting?
Just 12 random rugby league
Or
players.
are we having 12 representatives meeting the RFL on Wednesday and 12 captains under their own steam meeting on Thursday?
I mean, we don't know who from the RFL is going to be on this Zoom call, but I hope they say to him, are you going to stop cheating then and feigning injury and laying down longer than you should be and, all that kind of thing. I hope they do. It'd be quite funny. Why have we got this theory now that players' previous disciplinary shouldn't be taken into account when they go to the disciplinary?
Yes, it should.
And there's now a conspiracy.
If you go to court for any civil offence, it's taken into account.
There's
when
a
it comes to
conspiracy
sentencing.
at the Rugby Football League. There is a conspiracy at the match review panel against Michael McAlorum and Liam Watts.
Yeah,
I can't believe it that these two gentlemen, who fine, upstanding individuals that they are, apart from when they're on the.
Do you think Michael McAlorum a bit upset that the Catalan fans didn't start a GoFundMe page for his fan?
I tell you what, you can do whatever you want with your money. I buy rubbish. I mean, I've had this year, so that's okay. But got a signed French wheelchair rugby league shirt now. What am I going to do with that? But at least I've got a tangible item there, as opposed to paying someone's fine who was naughty.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say on last week's charges that then related to the disciplinary the following night is that there were a number of downgrades, weren't there? Which
undermines.
Well, look, there's a process and they're independent of each other, and so what it shows is that they are independent of each other. But what it also shows to me is that there is uncertainty around the application of the framework, because you've got differing outcomes from Monday to Tuesday, and there will be occasions where that happens, but there were quite a number of downgrades. So, the work that will have gone on in the off season between the disciplinary, the match review panel, and the match officials, it's not quite
looks
working at the
dislocated
moment.
at the moment,
I think
yeah.
there were always going to be issues in the first few weeks
Yeah.
of the season.
Like there is in every season.
It is, and I do hope in the next few weeks it will settle down. So
Well, I think the players will become more averse to what they're actually being penalised for. And again, you'd have to do a comparison if you could really be bothered between the number of penalties in each round as to whether it's getting less or not. But the feeling is, just by watching it, that there were less incidents in round 2 than there were in round 1, which is illustrated by there are less people in front of the beak this week.
yeah, and I think that's fair.
So that's part of the adjustment period for everybody.
Do we, brackets the media, have a responsibility not to glorify things by having counts of cards week by week and saying,
No,
look how many people have been sent off this week?
I have a lot of time for Brian Carney. And I think virtually everything Brian Carney says is from a point of absolute reason and can be justified. I thought that both he and John Wilkin went a little bit over the top at half time in the
He's
Warrington,
never coming on this podcast.
saying that the game was having an existential crisis. And I think that's where the media sometimes needs to take a step back and say, right, let's explain the context around which this decision is made, and then let's just talk about whether we think it's the right decision. But if you're going to stand on the touchline at half-time and basically say the game is in crisis because a decision is wrong, it shouldn't have been a red card, then I think you're setting the whole almost agenda for how people are going to react to that, which is one of the reasons we had the media briefing, and John Wilkin very kindly provided the pastries for.
Leeds in crisis.
He was there.
Bring that back. He was there. I've never seen him.
So I get that they're upset by the decision, but I think we also have to be a little bit responsible in the current climate about saying we can see why a decision is being made.
Yeah.
We don't understand. We don't think this one is right.
Well,
But if you start talking about the game's gone, then all of the people who think the game's gone. I've got.
I don't think
to
they
say-
use that phrase, which is
No,
an odd
it's
phrase. But
existential
you're right.
crisis
Yes,
is the game's gone.
I had to
agree.
Google that
in
to
posh
spell it.
language, isn't
I
it?
couldn't spell it.
Yeah, I think they were also frustrated, weren't they?
They were
frustrated,
and understandably
and it was
so.
in the moment. In that,
Yeah.
I appreciate it wasn't. They had a little bit of time to think about what they were going to say.
But I think we just have to
Yeah.
be careful about how we contextualise all of this at
But
the moment while it settles down.
we go back a few years. I don't know how many years now. Where I was video referee on the game that probably led to the change when we were issuing a lot of yellow and red cards in the early part of the season. I think it was Wigan against Castleford. Can't remember the Castleford player now, but I recommended
Not
a
Wigan
sin
and
bin.
Castleford again.
Yeah, I think I recommended a sin bin to Chris Kendall. I think was the referee, and I thought I was doing the right thing in accordance with our protocols and interpretations, only to be told the following week no, it was the wrong thing. So, at that point in that season, we did an about turn as referees, and we sort of backed down, as it were. I don't think we'll see a backing
there
down
won't be
here.
any backing down on head contact.
No, there will be no backing down here. There's been a tweak made on this particular thing, and rightly so.
Which actually reflects well on the sport, that it can make that change.
Well, I think so.
And I think the cleaning up of the play of the ball is starting to work as well, that more players are actually being seen to make the effort to stand up and play it correctly.
Definitely.
And those who don't are getting penalised for it.
Yeah,
And they can protest as much as they like, but most of them, it's a failure of technique.
Yeah, well, we talked about that last week. You can change habits, and you can change some habits, certainly, quickly. And that, for me, for one, having seen quite a lot of games now, that has almost dried up overnight, really. Now, that relies on referees to stay on it and not back off on it, or not miss the odd one where it occurs. But, as far as I can see, the players are really sort of bought into that. And I think we are seeing some benefits, because I think the rucks are generally tidier.
Yeah. I think the ball's in play more, and that can only be good.
So we're not going to start playing touch and pass in a couple of years, as people keep saying. I'm not having tig and pass. No one calls it that. Only wrong people call it tig and pass.
But we don't have any
Like League
choice.
Express.
That's the other thing.
No.
But also, the game will evolve. The way in which the game
Always
will be
evolves.
played will probably slightly change. And I think there were comments made over the weekend. I don't know which coach it was that was sort of saying, actually, we might end up with a more open, free-flowing game.
We will when the
because
weather,
we've tidied up the ruck.
as the weather gets better. We will.
We're reducing tackle height or whatever, or we're penalising, certainly this season, the tackle height a little bit, perhaps stronger and stuff. That we might see a return to, dummy half players, etc., whatever, offloads and all that. So the
Kick
game
some
will
runs.
change. We've had probably a period of.
I know we haven't talked about the Castleford-Salford game yet, but there was a lot of offloading in that game. Probably more than we've seen in games at this time of the year when, the pitch was firmer, but both two teams that wanted to play a progressive style of rugby league that promotes the ball, and the new laws help them to do that. And it's a much better spectacle for the neutral.
Just like certain Castleford Tigers forwards haven't learnt from their previous indiscretions, Castleford Tigers administration having sent the wrong bits of paper to the IMG people this week. What happened? Because I was at Wakefield, I just saw a tweet and I know what happened.
Apparently they submitted a team sheet that had a player on. They officially submitted a team sheet that had a player on it who was wrongly on there. So they submitted a second team sheet with that player removed and the one that they wanted to be playing in there instead, and that cost them an interchange.
Yeah, it would do.
Purely an administrative error. But it could have been a costly one, as they apparently only used 7 interchanges anyway, but you don't know what would have happened if they've had that 8th.
Don't forget to support the Castleford Tigers fans in their GoFundMe to support the administration errors and get a new computer. Gav says, it's more that we were told that grade E means 4 games. Pelly gets an upheld grade E that gets grade E that gets 3 games. Was there something on the website's wrong or something?
There was lots of tweets about this.
No wonder I can't work out what's going on.
The operational rules that were on the website, I don't know whether they've been updated over the weekend, but the operational rules that were on there were from 2023, so there was some confusion there around the grading.
Is that a GoFundMe to get the RFL a new laptop so they can put the right PDF up? That's what's going on there.
The other thing I would say is that we've had players charged at sort of grades D's and C's and D's and are getting 2 and 3 matches that have been sin-binned, and that to me doesn't seem quite right. If you're getting banned for 2 or 3 games, that would suggest to me, anyway, from the outside looking in, that player should have been sent off.
Well, this is what Paul's saying. Should we go to the Reunion style thing of a yellow card can be upgraded while they're off the field?
Well, again, I quite like that idea because people, I think we mentioned it again last week, we talk about continuity and decisions taking too long. We talked about the Momorovsky decision. I got it right this week.
You did?
Been practising. No, we talked about that decision taking too long. And that's not what we want. So there is an argument for it, but it's not a perfect system either because the coaches will say, well, hang on a minute, I don't know whether that player's coming back, and so I don't know whether who I'm going to replace with that person or etc. So there's never a perfect system.
I mean, it's only taken 30 odd years for rugby unions to put names on the backs of shirts. So when we see the whizzy goalposts at Twickenham in 2047 or something, look forward to that. Hopefully it'll have been destroyed by then. David not happy because the Wigan players did not parade the cup around the ground, but the Panthers players were busy taking selfies. The Wigan fans.
We were rushing down to the press area to get the words of wisdom from Ivan Cleary, so I didn't see that.
Did see I assume it was a Wigan fan getting escorted off by security behind Ryan Carney. Although he's a professional, he was looking straight at the camera. The 2 Sams were straight looking to see what was going on, but.
I wouldn't run anywhere near Sam Burgess.
Or Sam Tompkins, in fairness. And he's only little. So Salford won, 26-22.
Really entertaining game. Enjoyed it.
I was trying to watch it, but then Wakefield started scoring more points and stuff, so I had to pay attention. So that was good. Hull County League, we haven't spoken about that game. Ash Shanley is like the Matt Letizia of rugby league in terms of he's going to have a whole try of the month campaign to himself, but without the conspiracy story.
He's trying to outdo himself every week, isn't he? Hull KR played really well on the night. They are going to be challenging at the top. We knew that. But how great to see a team that's prepared to kick on their own quarter, cross field, and then a winger that's prepared to back themselves. That again was a highlight moment of what was a very entertaining game in difficult conditions. I think we've seen the disciplinary on the back of that. Is that James Donaldson's got 2 games and Sam Lissoni 3, subject to appeal.
So should Donaldson have got more games because he's?
No, I think Donaldson's record is pretty much.
Oh no, just because people are saying that was worse than what Sam Lissoni.
He had both of his feet off the floor when he made contact. The Lissoni one I haven't seen reviewed, but I suspect Leeds will challenge the grading, and it'll probably be downgraded by a game, because that seems to be what happens at the moment. But no, it was really entertaining. 2 teams who I think look better than they did last year. Defensive spirit about Leeds, which they didn't have last year. And Jez Litton deserves special praise for a monumental 80-minute performance at hooker for Hull KR, and kicked 5 goals, including one off the touchline. So, yeah, it was another great night where both sets of supporters could come away thinking, I'm looking forward to what the season holds for us now.
So I forgot it was Thursday, and I forgot there was a match
Thursday.
on.
And there is
You
no
forgot
match
it
on
was Thursday,
Thursday.
or you forgot it was a match.
Friday then. Whatever.
No, it was
It was
Thursday.
Thursday.
It was
Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, okay. So this week there's no
no
Thursday.
game.
Oh, well, I'll probably turn it on Thursday, expecting it to be a match on.
but
but
what
there isn't
starts?
one.
It's Saturday this week.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, well, you'll have to text me and remind me.
Why is it on Saturday?
So I was like, oh, there's a game on.
It'll be Sky schedules, I would imagine.
So I turned it on, and then Stephen came in the room and was like, we're not watching this. So it got subbed for The Apprentice.
Oh, that's terrible
no.
now. That's rubbish now. I mean,
no,
I waited until
in the-
Friday to watch that. It was dreadful.
In the name of
Oh.
marital bliss, I obliged.
Oh,
So I
no.
didn't really see much
Did
of
you
it.
not know it was Leeds and Hull KR?
What I
The
would say,
entertainers.
just on the match, because people still get confused on this, that both players got charged grade
Yeah.
D.
Yeah.
They both got charged with the same
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, and Lissani's record is worse.
Yeah, that's the reason why it ends up 3
Yeah.
matches and not, 2. So
I think the other great thing to come out of that was the atmosphere.
Look, again, it came across
full
great on the
credit
telly.
to. I mean, we knew that the Hull KR fans would turn up, in a virtual sellout. Very emotional before the game with the tributes to Rob Crossland, but the game matched that passion off the field, and I thought for a round 2 match, it was really entertaining, pretty high quality. There were clearly some mistakes because it was a very, very muddy pitch, but I'd say it was a great event. I didn't even mind getting back late on a Thursday night and thinking it was
Was the
Saturday or the
M62
next
closed?
day. No, it was fine.
Whoa, wow.
Well, I had to come back via York,
Oh,
so
so-
I didn't go on the M62.
Fair enough.
I didn't have to. I could have dropped somebody at the side of the M62, but I didn't.
Did anything else happen in the Super League? Was there anything else happen in the Super League? Apart from people signing for next year, which I'm not interested in, which is probably still happening. Bob Dwyer's off to leave because Edwin Pape, our mate, is injured. It's not good. I've got to take him out of my fantasy team and everything. Gav says Saturday's a long day for rugby. I'm planning on watching the Vegas games, and the last doesn't kick off until 4:30 a.m.
Well, the first one kicks off about 2 o'clock a.m. I think, so that is going to be a long day if you're watching
All of them.
the 2 Super
Well,
League games
Can't
afterwards.
sleep after that, can't you? Before Leeds, Catalans, and then Salford versus Hull.
I haven't decided yet whether to stay up for the Vegas games or record them and watch them as live, but it's going to be fascinating. Absolutely.
35,000 tickets sold this
already.
year.
Yeah.
And the big game on Saturday is Wakefield Barrow in the 1895 Cup, the home of Rugby League. I think it kicks off at 2. They've put 3 in the paper, but I'm sure it's a 2 o'clock kick-off. I've got a feeling I might be the only person there in the media box.
I think
Good.
BBC Radio Cumbria will be there.
But they're always there, aren't they? So that's good. They can find Paul Crowley after the game so I can steal their interview. So there's nothing else happening in Super League. Challenge Cup, it was the 4th round. Batley... Oh, sorry, go on.
I have to say, I saw a wonderful game last night.
The
6
mighty
o'clock.
Swinton. The
Swinton
Lions.
against
I should have
Hull.
worn my Swinton. I've got a Swinton shirt. I should have worn it today. I'll wear it next week.
And whilst Deck Patton got the official Player of the Match award, and he did have an extremely influential game, not least with his last-ditch tackling against much bigger people, Lewis Hall for Swinton was absolutely magnificent.
And they won
They did.
28-12.
And Jake Spedding scored as good a
Oh,
try
that was a good one,
as,
wasn't it? Yeah.
as Ash Hamlet.
I mean, that would be a surprise against
Moneybags Oldham.
Oldham.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's
Well, I
playing
don't know.
I know it's-
Swinton are the division above.
I know they
so-
are, but I think
Oldham made the most awful start. They were 14 points down in as many minutes, and 2 of both tries came from mistakes. But in terms of a real good, old-fashioned local derby in the cup with everything on the line, and again, I don't know what the official crowd was.
746, because there was the 3 teams that gave their attendance. 2 teams that
Sounded
gave
a lot
attendance.
more, and the coverage was great, and a thoroughly enjoyable way to end the weekend.
Yeah, only Vane Wakefield gave attendances this week in the Challenge Cup. I've got no idea why.
And Martin Kellner was delighted afterwards.
Well, it should be. They're famous celebrity fan, as Alan Kilshaw knows about now. Batley beat Rochdale 30 points to 14. Widnes won at Bradford 26-12.
That's a big result for Widnes.
Especially with their shenanigans.
I saw probably the last half an hour of that. Very, very committed defensive performance from Widnes.
They see at least one Widnes tweet saying now we've got to do it on a wider pitch. That's the problem for them.
You can keep it tight.
Yeah. Halifax 50, Hammersmith 4, Keighley 14, Featherstone 58, Wakefield 78, Hunslet 6, Hunslet ARLFC. Again, we've got to sort this out.
6-all though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know 6-4 to... Was it 6-4?
No, 6-all.
6-all.
They got an interception try. Yeah, Wakefield did what they had to do. York Acorn 32, Wath Brown 28, and York
Game
Knight
of the
16, Sheffield 32. Now that sounds like an interesting game.
Yeah, was it York down to 11 players?
Something like that. And it was all the referees' fault, not the players, all the referees' fault. I kept reading on social media, where are they? Where's the match report in here? I know there's one because I've seen it somewhere. One, two, three, four sin bins, 3 sin bins and a red card, and a sin bin for Sheffield as well. Well, if you've got 3 sin bins and a red card to 1 sin bin, that would suggest it's a problem with your discipline rather than the referees. But I don't think I'll tell Andrew Henderson that next time I see him.
So it's Halifax against York Acorn.
Yes.
So Halifax again get the community club at home. Widnes Batley, which should be interesting. That will be a good game. Featherstone Wakefield.
Yep.
That's the tie of the round.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you?
And Swinton Sheffield.
I mean, the fascinating thing is now, if Wakefield beat Barrow on Saturday, and if on Sunday Bradford beat Swinton, which is not a given, obviously now, is that Wakefield's fixture would then go Bradford, Featherstone, or something like that. Oh no, they wouldn't, because the 1895 semi-finals aren't until June or something. Sorry, but these.
But interesting that the 1895 quarter-finals involves Bradford against Swinton and Sheffield against Batley.
Yeah.
So, again, the teams that are fighting for Wembley on 2 fronts.
On the Challenge Cup, I can't remember this last year, but it obviously was. But it almost seems such a small round, isn't it?
It's because they need to get down to 4 clubs to add to the 12 Super League clubs.
Yeah.
Which again everybody's complaining about, but actually it's a similar principle to the FA Cup, that the Premier League teams don't come in until the lower league teams have had the chance to play each other.
We've got to realise that these competitions only matter by the time you get to the final, and the rest of it's all irrelevant because people don't pay to go watch them or whatever. So unfortunately, the magic of the cup doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist in the FA Cup either. It's just a complete myth of a time long gone.
Be interesting to see Oldham at York as well in the 1895 Cup, because if Oldham were always more likely to get to Wembley through the 1895 than they were through the Challenge Cup, and they've learnt a salutary lesson.
I think that'll do Oldham a good run, I would think.
I would think so. So that's shaping up to be a great competition this year as well.
The Women's Challenge Cup kicks off at 11:30 or something this year.
Yes, is it 11:45 or?
And there are pre-season games, even though we're sort of in the season.
Yeah.
Well, one's certainly a delayed testimonial for Greg McNally.
But I don't know why Lee Leopard's reserves gets on the back page of the paper and say the women's friendlies this week don't.
I suspect that Workington Whitehaven is to give them matches because we're still 3 weeks away from the start of the season
as well. Yeah. Super League this week, St Helens Lee on Friday along with Warrington, Cass, Wigan.
That'll be
Huddersfield.
Interesting with Lee having had a week off.
Yeah.
See how they come back.
That's the TV game. Saturday, Leeds versus
They're all
Cass.
TV.
Well, no, the Sky game. And Salford versus Hull carries on afterwards.
Which could be very entertaining.
And Sunday, you've got Hull FC versus London Broncos.
Which will be intriguing.
They're all on Sky, and some are on Super League Plus.
Well, they're all on Super League Plus. Some are delayed.
They're not on the BBC though this week, so there's no
so
chance.
on the BBC. There's quite a number of games that won't be on TV, as it were, traditional TV. They'll be online only, won't they?
So they'll put the rubbish games on iPlayer. Or we've got to put Salford versus Catalans on. We'll stick it on the iPlayer.
But that partly is how people consume their media these days. I found Oldham Swinton last night. It was on YouTube on the Sportsman. It was.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the numbers on those games versus the numbers that are on BBC
and it'd be interesting to see if we're getting any closer to the Championship being televised, because we were promised that would be decided before the season kicked off, and it's 2 weeks away.
Well, there hasn't been any 1895 anywhere, has there? I think there's nothing on the Sportsman so far, and our league seems to have been, has it gone for a Burton?
No, it's still there, but it's not been
exists.
used.
I know it exists, but they haven't shown any.
I think there'll be
games,
some
have they?
Women's Challenge Cup games on there.
Tell you what's confusing. If you go into the back page,
Everything as you get older.
apart from the letters page, where people still think that everyone who's ever won the Harry Sunderland Trophy has been forgotten now. They don't exist.
Yeah,
Apart
that's
from-
right. Could you bring your trophy back,
Yeah.
please?
I don't-
We want to melt
Who
it
won it
down.
last year? Don't know. No one won it last year. No one won it the year before. Whatever. Apart from that, which is a complete nonsense theory, he's got the results in the back bit of amateur leagues that only the people
Community.
involved with community. Sorry. Well, why is it not Hunslet CRLFC?
It should be.
It's women's results Challenge Cup, but it's not the Challenge Cup. It's the other Challenge Cup. So why have we got two Challenge Cups? I know no one cares. I know
Well, you do.
I mean, I care, but I know no one cares. But
I just think we're in a good place at the moment. And yes, we should always hold account. There was some,
we do hold people accountable. Right?
yeah, there was some comments on social media, and thank you to everybody who does comment on stuff, saying that sometimes we might be a bit too positive. And
Hang on, we were supposed to be too negative. That's why I've not got work in the past,
but I do think that
and I still not getting any work.
we're in a good position to capitalise. Whether we can,
New Brown getting sent
I
off
think-
doesn't change anything.
No, I think.
Well, no,
is
that's
that an
what I
element?
said,
because
Right
no
at
one
the very
outside of our
beginning.
bubble cares.
Is
But
that
what
an
was-
element of people's frustration though, that because the game appears to be in a better place, in a good place, that the foul play is detracting from that? And
but it's
That's
not. It's
one of the
just
arguments,
it's more
but-
talking points, and the more people talk about rugby league, the more it trends. The more that people that aren't within our bubble talking exactly about the nuance or otherwise of a new brown tackle are saying, "When's that rugby league on?" Because I hear that everybody's talking about it. I've got to at least have a look.
Like when EastEnders was promoted, everyone's talking about it. Rugby League, everyone's talking about it. Have you seen that rugby union try that they're calling the greatest try ever, where a bloke hurdles over an injured player who's been treated on the field? That's not good sportsmanship, is it? That's the kind of thing they pull us up for.
We've got to stop comparing ourselves.
no,
The
but I
other-
think you're right. We're not here to cheerlead the sport.
I think we're
Well-
here to accentuate it if it is positive, but hold it to account if it isn't.
I've always said that we used to do two different types of programme at the same time. On Mondays on Radio Yorkshire, we would very much be warts and all and talk about everything. And on a Wednesday on TalkSport 2, we would very much be promoting what was coming up and be positive, because you're talking to different audiences. People who watch this programme and listen to this programme know exactly what's going on.
I just think it's quite ironic that the more the people go on social media and say the game is dead, the more people are watching it, and it clearly isn't dead. And the other thing is, at Wigan, I was approached by a couple of people who said they loved the podcast, which was absolutely fantastic of them. And clearly it's since James joined.
Yeah, obviously.
Did they have white sticks? I mean, you can have a white stick and listen to a podcast. That's so
true,
good
yeah.
a podcast.
They didn't have to come over. I'd never met them before. They weren't relatives.
Excellent.
And they said we love the podcast.
We're not on the back of a bus though, aren't we, like Jodie Boyd Ward?
And
She's on the bus.
I thank them for doing that, because we're just here to chat.
Well, glad you enjoy it anyway.
What are we going to chat about next week? What's going to happen this week?
Well, hopefully there's something equally as controversial next week, and then we've got something to talk about. I'm joking.
I think there might be. I think. By virtue of the fact that there always is.
It's not like a referee's WhatsApp group you can go in and...
Well, there were many different WhatsApps, but I left that when I resigned.
Here's a question for you, because I meant to ask this at the start of the programme, I forgot. You know when a player gets sin binned, right, you do the 10 minutes thing.
Well, there's a yellow card.
Right, and then
go on.
there's a yellow
Yeah.
card as well. Is that just so you get more time on the telly? Because you don't need to do that and that. Why,
Well, I
that's
don't know
the
why.
what's going on.
I don't know why some referees do the sort of
To get on the
signal,
telly.
as it were. It's
On the
just,
telly.
I remember Stuart Cummins ordering some new kit one year, and I said, "What?" He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Oh, it looks good, apart from there's no pocket on the shorts, so I don't know what we're going to do about that." But obviously, in the NRL, they don't use cards, so it's a very English thing, isn't it? Like football, getting a card out and showing a card, but.
Performative nonsense.
I mean, I'm sure if you look on Twitter or YouTube, there'll be some great clips of Mike Dean and the no look card, where he brandishes it. So
Well, Paul throws in the final grenade. Players' union, will it happen? It already has. But it was interesting to read that, having said, well, you think, wouldn't they have been more upset about players not being paid by Toronto? That apparently that's still going on and hasn't been sorted. So,
but to repeat, players have been involved. And are still involved in the process and will be involved this week. So they have been involved. They haven't probably consulted every individual player, but you know.
Well, that's what they want, isn't it? Look what happened when Man of Steel was down to everyone. Someone voted for Bothland. So,
And we are on Rocky Biscuits this week, so
are we sponsored by Batley?
Yeah,
Foxes,
Batley.
we're
Yeah.
supporting you.
Don't forget, if you are a player and you're upset about what's going on in rugby league, when they put a tweet out with Ash Hanley scoring a great try or the tackle from Field on Saturday night, retweet those as well. Because that, you know, that's it's all of benefit to you. The players don't listen to this, do they?
No, I wouldn't.
I see Rob Hicks has deserted and is appearing on a rival podcast. There are no rival podcasts, Phil. Only inferior ones.
Who had him first?